Welcome back, Fantasy Fiction Fanatics. It's great to see you again, and I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to be doing another class, and we're going to be starting our next book in the Darksword series, or trilogy, Doom of the Darksword. So hopefully you guys are excited to start this book with me. We are reading chapters 1 through 6, and we definitely are off to an interesting start. I'll go ahead and talk about it a little bit more as we get going, but we are already in the midst of things. We are already looking forward to, or looking towards, a new beginning for this part of the story. So a lot to go ahead and cover and to see what we'd like to discuss. Let me know your thoughts, what you feel like starting this book off, coming to a second book of this series, and I just love to hear your thoughts on how this adventure is going for you, or anything else about this book and these characters, and the setting as well. I think the setting is super interesting. I've always found this series super interesting because of the fact that the world is set up with like pure magic being the focus, which, even though there's a lot of fantasy worlds that have magic, it's not usually the focus of the society. Usually the magic people are like the outliers, or usually like people who, not everybody can have magic, but only certain people do, and it's like a trade or a skill, whether it's learned or born with. So I do think it's really interesting that the whole basis of this world is the magic. And I always find, as I continue through the books from book 1 to book 2, it gets more interesting about what magic can be used for and how people really look at it in this world. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Chapters 1 through 6. We'll go ahead and do our recap. So a lot and yet not a lot happens in this first section. I feel like I say that a lot for many different sections that we read, and hopefully you understand what I mean every time I say it. But we start off right where we left off with just a slight recap or a slight retelling of Vanya getting into the Chamber of Discretion, and now we know that he contacted Saryon from the chamber. He reveals that Blatchloch was his inside man, someone who was in charge of the group for him and had been set there and was somebody that he was controlling. And he demands that Saryon and Blatchloch bring Joram to him. So they have a whole conversation about how everything is working, how he's expecting him to bring Joram back, and how he'll be contacting him later. Joram and Simpkin come in shortly after that, and they have just finished disposing of Blatchloch's body. Joram and Simpkin made it look like centaurs came and killed him while he was out in the woods, and they feel that they are scot-free of someone finding out that that Joram did the murder. The guards, though, have discovered that Blatchloch is not around, and that is very suspicious. So they're kind of on edge, and they're unsure of what to do. But Joram convinces him, or one of the guards, to let him go to the forge because he's supposed to be at the forge, and they're trying to act like everything is normal. But Saryon is concerned. He's trying to think about what he needs to do in terms of Vanya. He doesn't trust Vanya anymore, and he's trying to figure out exactly what he should do and how he should do it. He ends up pulling out a piece of dark stone and convincing a guard to take him to the forge to talk to Joram. He tells them that they need to leave, explains the situation, and asks him to forge a setting or some way to hold it into a necklace for the dark stone in order to prevent Vanya to being able to talk to him. Then Saryon goes and Joram end up going back at the same time to the cell, and Simpkin and Mosiah are there, and they discuss the plan with them. They want to take Mosiah and Simpkin with them, and they're all good to go. They're just discussing exactly how they should leave when Andon comes in crying about how they found Blatchloch's body, and the rebels in the group are trying to attack the guards and take over, and asks for help. they go to help, but end up getting delayed by guards themselves and getting attacked. So Saryon gives magic to Mosiah, who then turns into this giant werewolf and attacks the guards, and is able to make it so that way they are able to free of the guards. He takes on most of them. Joram and Simpkin help a little bit, and they are free to escape, and they do so. They are running. We end on this chapter with them running out of the village. So, yeah, that is basically where we are at for this first set of chapters. Again, hopefully you have enjoyed it and that you are interested in finding out what happens next now that they are going to be out in the Outlands and that the village is kind of crumbling in on itself. Let's start with the start of the book. So the first thing we'll talk about is how this book starts and where we're at coming into this novel. So obviously this is a book 2, so we're going to already know things about the characters, we're already going to know things about the setting, we're already going to know things about what's going on, and that's important for it being a book 2. But then we can kind of look at it and see where we are starting at, and hopefully that will lead us to some more expectations of how we're going to handle later in the story. We always say that the start of something, a performance, a book, a paper, anything that you're presenting, I guess, is going to be most memorable at the start and at the end, and everything in the middle is kind of more washed out than everything else, or more washed out than the starting and the ending. I don't know if that's totally true in all cases, but I do feel like the start and what hooks you is definitely very important, whether it's a book 1, a book 2, a book 20, because no one's going to want to continue reading the story if it starts off like crap, or it starts off confusing, or it starts off weird, or it starts off in a completely different area than you expected it to, and they can't really reel you back in as easily if you're already kind of checked out from the beginning. So we did do our ending discussion where we're transitioning to this book, and then we're seeing now with our transition and what we're expecting us to start off with was correct or not. Now there's 2 kinds of startings for a second book I usually find. The one where you're starting off either right where we left off or mostly right where we left off, like not that long since you left off. And then there's the book where it's like, okay, we're starting off after a big time leap. So the book ending was kind of like a marker for them to be able to take a time leap, and then you come back and you're like, okay, I'm, a year in the future, or, even more possibly a couple years in the future, and these characters are now doing these things. But in this particular novel, we're starting off right where we left off, like literally right where we left off. We have that little bit of kind of recap or rehash of Vanya's moment where he's getting into that chamber of discretion, and at the end of the last book we were like, oh, who is he calling and what is going on with that? And we find out right away that he got in that chamber of discretion. He's like, decided, okay, I'm gonna go talk to this other person who's not expecting it, and then bam, we're talking to Saryon in the cell where he's at, and he's like, oh my gosh, like Vanya's talking to me somehow. So we pick up literally right where we left off with answering the first question that we wanted to know from this second book, is who is he talking to? And it also answered pretty much right off the bat that Blatchloch was, the person he was originally talking to and was his original partner within the village. So we fill in some blanks that way, and we immediately get answers to what we were left on by starting right back up. In fact, we kind of don't even feel like there's been a break. If you were to pick up book 1 or finish book 1 and then immediately pick up book 2, it's basically one large story, at least between these 2 books. We'll find out book 3 when we get there. But at least between book 1 and book 2, It's as if we had a longer story going on, and then the authors were just like, okay, this is where we need to stop it because we need a breaking point for someone to, otherwise the book's gonna be too long. So we need something to, a little bit more manageable bite-sized piece of it. And we kind of finished a major event. So we're just gonna chop it. This one will be in book 2, and this one will be in book 1. This one will be in book 2. So this is the kind of story where we're just immediately back in. We're continuing it as in one long story. And that's not to say that if we didn't continue that way, it would be bad. There are lots of books that either have a time jump of some kind or where we're starting in a slightly different place than we ended off. And that's not bad. It just is a different style and a different way of telling a story. And if the author deems the stuff in between where we end and where they're starting is important enough to tell us. Obviously this one, it's important because we're continuing our journey right off the bat. Also something that's really nice, at least about this start, is that they've already assumed that you've read book 1. And by that I mean there's not a lot of rehashing or exposition, kind of explaining who people are again. It's very much straightforward and acting like, again, it's a continuous text that they just happen to chop into pieces. They're not going back and explaining like, oh yeah, Saryon got here because of this, this, and this, and oh yeah, Joram is dead and which means he has no magic or anything like that. An example of this would be like Mercy Thompson series, if you guys have read that at all. Every single book, it's kind of like a little standalone section, kind of like, like a detective story that you watch, and every episode is about a different case. So that's kind of how Mercy Thompson is, in the fact that it has one event that they're getting through in that story, and then the next book is about a different event. Not necessarily that they're not connected, and obviously the characters do grow and change over the long, overarching story. But each individual book covers one basic problem, and then they solve whatever that problem is. But each book, at the beginning, we kind of meet the characters. There's exposition or a little bit of dialogue or something that explains how they're at that moment and how they got there and who is what, and a little bit of more of a rehash. Again, not bad, just a different style, and I thought it would be interesting to talk about that style with you. If you have a preference of what you think what you prefer to read, books that start like Mercy Thompson, where they have different expositions or different ways of mentioning, like, okay, this is resetting us up so you know who people are. Or if you like this better, where we just jump in, we know where we're at, or at least you have to know where you're at if you're gonna read this book. And we just are expected to have already read book 1 and know all these characters and know what's going on in this moment. So I don't mind either way. I like both ways, but I do like, for this particular story, I think that it fits that we are just jumping in and we're not having a rehash. I think this epic story, where it's the main storyline is branching over these 3 books, that it shouldn't take the time when we're in the middle of things to then go back and be like, well, now we have to explain everything from book 1 that we should have already been aware of. So I like that for this particular book. I think it's the better choice to just be jumped right in and to just go with the story and act like it's one long text. The start of this book also is pretty quick. We have our downtime a little bit at the beginning, where we've got the part talking to Vanya, where they're, talking at the forge. And these are the moments that are like not super exciting yet. We're not really like just jumping in immediately running for our lives or anything like that. There is a little bit of build-up, but it's not a lot, because already now at chapter 6, they're escaping and they're beating up guards and they're trying to escape, and they do end up escaping. But I mean, there's a little bit more of that exciting, dynamic events that are happening, and we're already kind of jumped into the middle of something that has been building all this time. So we spent number 1 mostly building our story, mostly escalating and escalating to the point where we are at now, and now we are starting, and where whatever we've built up in book 1 is now coming to a bit more excitement here in book 2 right off the bat. We don't have to keep building anymore. We're already in the trouble. We're already in the danger. So I'm really excited to continue this story, and the start of the book, I think, has a really good base to be hooked into the story once again and to be ready to move forward into their next adventure. Next, let's go ahead and talk about Saryon, because Saryon was really the main focus of this set of chapters so far. Like, we've really been following mostly him around, really seeing who he is right now and what he's going through at this point in the journey. And I really want to just point out how much Saryon has changed. All the way through book 1, we're seeing where he started, how he's on this path, and now we're really seeing where he has changed. So he's totally broken his faith with God and with Bishop Vanya. Of course, we kind of already knew this from book 1, but here we really see it pinpointed that he no longer has faith in the Almin and in Vanya. He doesn't trust them. He doesn't believe that God is going to come and give him clarity. He just doesn't believe in it anymore. He's completely broken down on his faith. He's also much tougher than he used to be. He used to be very easily manipulated, very easy to kind of push over, like we have a little bit of wind going and he just immediately falls down. It's kind of how I see it in my brain. But he just doesn't cave in as much. Vanya is poking and poking and poking at him, and he's very conflicted, yes, but he's not just giving in. He's not just taking it and deciding that, yes, Vanya must know what's right. Yes, I'm just going to follow along. Yes, I'm just going to do it even though I don't believe it or believe in it. He's much tougher, and he's really sticking to his guns here. He's deciding that he is going to go off the rails and not listen to Vanya instead of just being scared of doing something contrary or being contrary to the church. He's asking important questions and actually evaluating the answers. He's not just, again, being given answers and then just taking it for face value. He's really thinking about it. He's really analyzing it. He is comparing it to other things that he knows or other things that he's been told, and really trying to fully understand everything before he makes a decision. He is asking questions even if he thinks he probably shouldn't press or shouldn't ask, and he understands when he's not being told everything, when he's being skirted around, when things are not going as he would like in the conversation. He is picking up on Vanya's reluctance and his manipulating of his answers. He even doesn't feel regret when the guards are all downed. I don't know if they're all dead. They kind of make it seem like they might be all dead. But he doesn't feel any regret anymore. I mean, he would have felt a lot of regret just a short little bit ago. But he just has grim satisfaction, which is a big difference from not feeling regret and just feeling, kind of apathy about it, but to actually feeling satisfaction, like, yes, we did what was right and we took down these people. Of course, that's not totally what he was thinking, but at the same time, if you have grim satisfaction about it, there's a little part of you that feels like what you were doing is right. And obviously that's a big change for Saryon, because normally he would not be that kind of person. Not normally, that's not the right word. Previously, he would not be that kind of person. And right now he doesn't trust anybody. He used to be pretty sheltered in the fact that he would trust anybody, everybody, about anything, especially if they came from the church, especially Bishop Vanya. So yes, he doesn't trust the bishop, but he doesn't even really trust anybody. Doesn't trust anyone except himself now. He's like, I'm going to be the one making the decisions. I'm going to be the one evaluating things. I am not going to let trust or assumptions or anything else get in the way. And again, this kind of goes into how he's being tougher and how he's really thinking and trying to make decisions for himself. He hates now the feeling of drawing in the magic. When he was giving magic to Mosiah, he completely hated it. Black Lodge has really ruined that feeling for him. So it feels good in a sense, but at the same time, he just doesn't like doing it. He no longer gets the satisfaction or the feeling of exhilaration from it that it used to give him, which overall now has made him a darker person. He's really learning what it's like to be out in the world and what real life experiences are like. Of course, his mom, was very high up in the church, and his dad was a high up person too. I think he was some kind of royalty, right? Tell me if I'm wrong on that. I believe he was some kind of duke or something, I thought. But either way, he's been very sheltered from that because he has such high-standing parentage. And at the font, he was very sheltered, and even in Marilyn, where it's all the nobility, he's very sheltered. He never had to deal with actual hard life problems and difficulties, and now he's being forged anew through his experiences here in this village with Joram and the others. And now he's forging his own way with his own decisions. He is no longer just going to follow along. He is no longer going to let himself be led, but instead he's going to take charge of his own life and his own decisions, which I am very proud of him for. Truly am very proud of him. Because everyone deserves to be able to feel like they can make their own decisions and that they should make what's the best decision that's right for them. And before, Saryon was very much scared of doing that, and now he has the confidence to do that. And he very much has a much broader view of the world, which also helps him make these decisions. His view of the world has expanded, and Vanya can't put that expansion back in that box. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit in the box that he originally wanted Saryon to be in. And I don't know if he anticipated that or not. But in one way, he is still the same. He still pretty much abhors technology, and though he doesn't mind, dead things and the fact that they're built, like the houses that were built and things like that, but he is still not a fan of the Forge, and especially not the Dark Sword. He has not changed enough to completely eradicate that. He is still himself, and he's been taught that from such a young age that it's hard to shake things like that. But in that way, he is still the same. But we will see if that continues to change too, because he is really evolving and changing and growing as a person. And we really see that in the beginning of this set of chapters. So really proud of him and really excited to see where he goes and what this continued experience of the real world has to offer for him, how that will continue to change him and help him get through the experiences that he's going to go through. What do you think about Saryon? Do you think that you see his growth? Do you like the growth that he's made? What do you think about his choices? I'd just be really interested to hear about where you think this character is going and what you think of where he's come from as well. Now, the last main thing I wanted to talk about is what Andon brings to the story, which might surprise you, especially because Andon himself was not even really a big part in this set of chapters, nor was he really a big part in any of the first book. I mean, he's a very small character, a very small role in everything, but his moment at the end there with Saryon racing away and him weeping over these guards' bodies, it really got to me. It choked me up a little bit, and it made me feel like only Andon could have really done that for me. It's because of how Andon is in this particular story and how the authors worked him in that made that final moment really impactful. That's what I'm trying to say. Could not think for a second what the word was. So it's a small role, yet it packs a punch with the actual, we don't totally know that's going to be the ending of Andon, and the fact that we don't know if they'll ever come back to this village. But at this point, it seems like an ending with Andon. And even though it's a small role, and even though he's not a main character and he's not even doing anything special, he really is important and he really is impactful for this story. At least in my experience with reading it and rereading it today. So let me know what you thought about that ending scene with them running away and Saryon trying to express what he wanted to express to Andon and really couldn't, and ends up having to leave, with Andon feeling so broken up and emotional about everything and feeling like his world is crashing down around him at this point. And he is such a good person, like genuinely a great person. He did not want a friend or a foe to be hurt at this point. He didn't love the guards, he didn't like Black Lodge, but he did not want them to fight and kill each other. He did not want death and destruction. He would rather have been suppressed by Black Lodge than have this be the ending and the end result. And this kindness he expresses to everybody, to anybody that comes in, even if people aren't the nicest. He still cares about them and treats them with kindness and respect, which I really, really appreciate from him. And part of me wonders if what Andon's role is to represent the acceptance of the Outlands, of the people who don't really care about magic. The acceptance and the simplicity, because also the life in that village is very simple and humble life. So I wonder if Andon is kind of a symbol for the acceptance and the simplicity and the wonderful parts that come from not being obsessed with magic and having that technology of it just being a calm, easy life. They don't have a catalyst, once again, to grant them life, to make it so they can do a bunch of magic. They get by on not using it. They get by on the simplicity of that, of the being able to have, the respect and the, what is the word? I am not doing well today. I keep looking for words and I'm like, this should be an easy word for me to pull out of my brain, but it's not. The accomplishment, there we go. The accomplishment of being able to work with your two hands and build a life for yourself instead of it just being magic. Not saying that magic doesn't build things for people and it's not them, gratifying, but I feel like there's a difference between doing it with the magic and doing it with the technology and the kind of the handicap, I guess you could say, and persevering through that handicap. So this life just seems to be super accepting of all people. It doesn't matter how much magic you have. It doesn't matter how much wealth you have, because everyone just lives simply here in the Outlands and they accept everybody. Magic, dead, someone who wants to build things, somebody who doesn't really want to build things, whether they were, supposed to be a criminal or not. They're just very accepting, simple people. And I feel like Andon is the pillar of that thought process for the village. He is the one that just wants to live life happily and healthily with his community. Also, I think he brings a different perspective. He brings a different perspective to the Outlands. Instead of just being a harsh, horrible place where bandits live and people who are unsavory, he has that lightness and that greatness of leading people and wanting to just have a great life for everybody to live and to prosper. He gives a different perspective to Black Lodge's leadership. He is not against Black Lodge's leadership, other than the fact that he doesn't want to hurt other people to get their food, that he doesn't approve of. But he's also not trying to tear Black Lodge down, and he doesn't feel suppressed by him. He doesn't feel like he has to make this big rebelliousness. He has a different perspective of just letting things go, of being very easygoing and just wanting to embrace what life gives you and to work with that as and being accepting of that as your lifestyle. He has a different perspective of how things could go. Instead of fighting the guards, he wants it to be where they can peacefully work things out, where everybody else does not want to work things out peacefully. So I feel like he embodies just goodness and is bringing that to this story and to these characters. In many ways, I don't know if many of you guys know about Taoism. Taoism is something that I learn more about and I try to incorporate into my life. But Taoism is basically, for those of you who don't know, is just trying to live happily with whatever life brings you. Just roll with the punches and just enjoy life for the fact of living life. And I feel like that's Andon. Andon just wants to live life and have it be a good life for everybody, and just to roll with the punches and just to accept how things are going to be and just make the best of it and to be happy despite things not going 100%. So I thought Andon was a really great person and a really great character, even if his role was very, very small. And he really got me, and I really wanted to discuss him with you guys. So let me know what you think about what I put as Andon's role. Let me know if you have a different view, if it hit you as hard, if you really didn't even notice Andon. Just let me know your perspective. I would really love to have a discussion with you about this character. Now, last but not least, let's go over the nitty gritty. I've got 3 things for the nitty gritty today. Hopefully we can go ahead and talk about them and possibly keep them in mind for the future to see if they show back up or what is going to be going on for that. So, first thing is that Simpkin mentions that he can open a corridor without a catalyst. So again, Simpkin has all these little things that are piling up that are saying he is not what he seems. And we still don't know exactly what he seems to be, nor do we know what he actually is. So I just think that's super interesting. That was glossed over a lot easier than I expected, just because Saryon was very, very shocked by that. I thought he would bring it back up, but maybe it will come back up. But again, Simpkin, there's something with Simpkin. There's something with Simpkin. Your guess on what it is? I'd love to know. I just love him even more. I always love Simpkin because he's just a quirky character, and I love quirky characters, as you guys will know if you guys watched me for a long time. But I just love him, and I think it's interesting that we still get more and more of these details that don't add up. Next is Vanya. Does he want the Darksword? Because there was a comment about Vanya wanting to get the Darksword, and that's one of the main things that he was really hoping that they would do, is bring him that sword. And if he did have the sword, what would he use it for? Like, obviously we know there's something that he's kind of doing government wise, and he's trying to keep at bay the other country. But what exactly would he plan to have with this dark sword, especially if he's caught with it? That seems like it would be pretty bad rep for the church to have a dark sword. But what do I know? Maybe he would, he's smart enough, he could probably spin it some way that people would believe it. But the question is, what exactly is his goal? Is it to get Joram, or is it to get the dark sword? Which one? Because I feel like now I am questioning which one it is. And last but not least, was something that they keep mentioning, is that if they leave the village, then when the Dukes of Wrath come to invade the village to get Joram and Saryon and Blatchloch, will they actually spare the village when they're not there? Because everyone's escaping and being like, okay, well, if we're not there, then they're not going to harm the village, and they're going to leave everybody alone and in peace, and they're just going to try and chase after us. But I don't really know if that's truly the case. Or will they just see it as an opportunity to take the village down and kill everybody or eradicate it or whatever they were planning on doing for that, in order to just get it done while they're there, and that they would have an excuse? I don't really know for certain if they're going to leave the village alone. And that is something that I am concerned about, is that their thinking is wrong. But that's something that we won't know until later if we ever get to find out on exactly what happened with that visit. But yeah, I'm wondering what you think. Do you think the Duke's Wrath will really leave it alone, or will Bishop Vanya just be like, okay, then clear it out? If they're not there, just do what you have to do to clear it all out, and we'll blame it on the fact that, you know, it's either another the other country, or blame it on the fact that, you know, the village was seen to have killed Blotch. Don't really know, but we are going to maybe find out in the future. But I just like to know what your thoughts are at this point in the book. Okay, that is it for the first 6 chapters, and hopefully you are enjoying it. Hopefully you will continue to discuss it with me. I am looking forward to reading some more and talking about it with you. Before we close out, let's just go over the trivia question. This last week's question was, true or false, all kinds of werewolves must change during the full moon? And that is false. So nice job to Dan, who got it correct. Again, last week I asked you guys if there was any feedback for me on the trivia, if you guys were enjoying it, if you guys really cared about whether I was doing the trivia question or not, just since there has been quite a bit of drop in participation. And so just let me know your thoughts. I'll keep it up a couple more weeks as I learn from you guys what you guys would like and if you guys are enjoying it or not. If you do want to join in on the trivia question, you think that would be fun, head over to the blog, fantasyfictionfanatics.net. It'll be on that right-hand side on desktop. You'll just scroll down a little bit and you'll find it. If you're on mobile, you'll have to scroll almost all the way down to the bottom, but you will find it there and can answer it. Okay. That is it for me today. Again, I would love to discuss things with you if you would like to. You can either comment down below if that's a good place for you. If not, I do have different social medias you can go to. The first one being Facebook, which is /fantasyfiction1. You can get updates from me there on both blog and the videos on the channel. You can DM me, whatever you'd like to there. I'm on there. On Twitter, it is the exact same thing. It is @fantasyfiction1, and I am uploading updates there for both the blog and the videos. You can also direct message me there as well. Instagram, I do have one. I am slow to post there because it is a different kind of content. It's not something I can just write up and do a link to update you guys. It is more about photographs, and that takes me a little bit more time. So I hope that you'll follow me there because I am enjoying getting to know that social media and getting a chance to make some more things for you guys on there. It just takes me a lot longer since I work full-time and do this as well. So I don't always have the time, but I am working to figure out how to make that time to upload there. So hopefully you'll follow me there as well. If you would like a place where you can chat with the Fantasy Fiction Fanatics community, we'd love it if you join the Discord. We have several people over there already who chat and talk in the Discord, and we'd love to have your opinions on fantasy and all kinds of other things. We talk about anything and everything. We just like having a great time discussing stuff over there. As well as if you want to know other people's opinions about stuff going on in the books that we discuss, over there is a great place. Plus, you can direct message me there as well and get updates. So it's kind of a catch-all place. And we would love to have you. The link is down below. All right. I guess that's it for me today. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.